Hi there, good afternoon. Exascale is a smallish ISP. It's grown quite organically. We've got a national MPLS network which has grown around building POPs around peering. Present in 4 data centres, that'd be London, Cheltenham, Manchester and Edinburgh. We've got 10 gig layer 2 between all the POPs. We're present on 5 UK peering lands, that'd be LON1, LON2, LONAP, Manchester, and also Edinburgh recently. So we currently provide on this network lease lines, broadband, MPLS, remote peering, so layer 2 services, voice, associated cloud services, and then infrastructure in co-location sites. Typical clients from education all the way down to healthcare. So it came from humble beginnings. That was our first router, it was 6500 in a Cheltenham data centre. Our first connection to LON1 was backhauled via a layer 2 service. As some of you might know, the SIP2T, when the link flaps, it can't handle the convergence, and it could take up to an hour to converge all the neighbours. So that's where we started off. We're not there anymore. So after that experience, we gained presence in Telehouse North. We then joined LON2 and LONAP in 2017, and then went on further to gain presence for resilience in Manchester in June 2017, and then most recently in August 2018 took presence in Edinburgh, Impulsion, South Gyle. So the network's built on Cisco ASRs in every POP. That's a variance from 9,000 to 1,000 based upon the traffic volumes. We use IBGP and EGBP, route reflectors to move all the prefixes around in IBGP. There's an aspiration to move away from route reflectors to BGP confederation to scale a bit better and move obviously away from route reflectors and the disadvantages from using those. So why regionally peering? First of all, started off as a way of thinking about how we differentiate the network, how we move traffic around. So we hand off traffic as close as possible to the origin. So if a customer is directly connected to, say, Edinburgh, and we've got a lease line in Edinburgh, we would prefer to hand off the traffic in Edinburgh naturally rather than backhaul it around the network if we see a prefix somewhere else. So I believe this improves user experience, lowers the latency, and also spreads load around the network. So as I explained, a lot of the lease line customers we attach as closest to their POP. So say if they're in Manchester, we'll connect them to Manchester, London to London, Edinburgh to Edinburgh, etc. We employ hot potato routing, so we try and get rid of the traffic as soon as possible rather than backhauling it around the network. We deploy, to leverage the POPs, we deploy Anycast DNS servers. So customers querying our DNS servers, be it lease line customers, will always go to the most local POP. And some of the websites we host for customers and also our own, they're all cached in each POP, so it never goes back to it always served from the localest POP possible. So to technically deliver this on a very low scale, Facebook's gone to town on theirs, and a small company. So we use weighting and also local preference. Weighting being vendor specific and also a local attribute, whereas local preference exported around IBGP. So just a quick sample. I'm sure you're all aware of this. So we set the local preference on peering connections to 200, and then we also set the weight to 200. So when we're exchanging traffic within a peering region, even though we could see probably a better prefix in London, and we would always hand it off locally regardless if we see them elsewhere in the network. And that's just an example at the bottom of what we do with transit, so it's least favourable. So that's just an example of how it's integrated into a neighbour setup on a Cisco setup. I believe that's the Manchester root servers. So what has this done in practice? This has imported routes into the IBGP, and the local preference is exported to every POP in the network. The weight isn't exported as it's a local attribute. So if we peer with Hurricane Electric in Manchester, also London, but we only see the peer in London, but we also see the peer via Hurricane Electric in Manchester, because we're peered with Hurricane Electric in Manchester, we'll always hand off the traffic, if it's exchanged in Manchester, to Hurricane Electric. That's achieved. So what that means is if you don't peer us in Manchester and we see you via another peer, we'll always hand it off to that peer. So that enforces regional peering first. It's moving traffic away, inevitably, from London. It encourages people then to peer with you in a particular POP. And because the way this has been engineered, it only works with egress traffic flows, whereas ingress traffic flows would have to work with the peers we're peered with to ensure that it's localized to each POP. So what does this do in practice? We no longer backhaul other networks' traffic around our network, so it leaves backhaul links free to sell MPLS, layer 2 services, and we're always sweating as much as possible the regional peering. As I explained with the Hurricane Electric example, it's just on there. It also reduces our reliance upon LON1 for peering as much as possible, trying to move away all the traffic which is going to London to the regional POPs. So that's me. It was quite rapid and quite quick, but the message is, peer with us if you can. Any questions? Okay, no problem. If you want to speak to me about it, speak after.
There's one over here.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Rob.
Can you just go into a little bit more detail about how you decide what traffic is local from a regional perspective? So you said if you peer with us in Manchester, we'll hand it off in Manchester, otherwise we'll hand it off in London. How do you determine?
So the access circuits which are hanging off that particular POP, if the user's going to one of your prefixes and we see in Manchester, we would force the traffic to go out of Manchester onto the peering LAN in Manchester. Even though we'd see you in, say, London, we wouldn't back all that traffic to London and then hand it off. That's how the Hurricane Electric...
it's based on your knowing your location of the circuits rather than anything...
Yeah. So the problem is, at the moment, say, with L2TP cross-connects with DSL providers, it's all handed off in London, so to be able to deploy that model, it's quite hard, but with Layer 2 Ethernet, it's very easy to localise the traffic around the country.
Any more questions? No, that's great. Thank you very much, Thomas.
No problem.